then they should expect that legislatures are going to respond. And essentially declaring a charter right to possess child pornography, as they did a couple of weeks ago, that to me is a demonstration that the courts are not consistent with the values that Albertans or Canadians have. It was a 5-4 court decision, so the court isn't even in full agreement of that decision. And what we're observing is, rather than deal with the cases at hand, and in that case, 2 horrendous pedophiles with graphic, awful images of children, the court decided to pluck a hypothetical case out of the air in order to strike down mandatory sentencing. So I would say that the court should begin to expect that if they are going to make decisions like that, they're going to see more legislatures take the action that we did. We just simply don't believe that with the evidence changing as it is, we don't believe it's in the best interest of children to delay for years before a court ultimately makes a decision. We want to make sure that kids' right to be able to have children of their own one day is preserved.
Bruce Pardy, law professor, what say you? Was Danielle Smith justified in wielding the notwithstanding clause in this case?
100%. This is exactly the kind of situation that the notwithstanding clause was created to make possible. So when we put in the Charter of Rights in 1982, we essentially established a system of judicial supremacy, meaning that the courts have the last word on the interpretation of these rights and what they mean and when they're going to be given effect. But the notwithstanding clause, if you like, was the last remaining bit of legislative supremacy in that regime. And it gives the ability to legislatures, both provincial and the federal parliament, to make legislation notwithstanding certain rights in the charter. And that's what they ought to be doing. It is exactly in response to courts going off the rails, like the Premier referred to. That's exactly the kind of scenario that notwithstanding is there to provide for. And so the tip of my hat to her for taking this on and having the guts to put the notwithstanding clause in these statutes.
Excellent. Tamara Lich, you would know a thing or two about government overreach. Was Danielle Smith justified?
I think so, and I have to agree with Bruce for sure. We have to protect our children first. I mean, I think when that decision from the Supreme Court came down, I was absolutely shocked. Obviously, after what I've been through, to have such a heinous crimes basically go unpunished. I'm on house arrest. I literally had the police show up at my door last night at 12:30 in the morning to do a house check to see if I was here.
No.
So I absolutely applaud that she's doing this, and I think, as Bruce said, there's problems at the Supreme Court level.
Yeah. Yep. And also as it pertains to parents and children, Drea, we see Danielle Smith making moves to undo some of the harms that have been done to Alberta families, and the activist classes are losing their minds. Was she right to do this? Was this, or was this, like the activists claim, a heavy-handed move that harms the most vulnerable? What do you think?
It's a hard yes for me, and it's long overdue. This is the type of leadership that we need. Parents have, I think, spoken on the issue, the concerns, the lack of parental rights that they have when it comes to protecting their kids from things like gender ideology. And so I think she's right in line there when it comes to just pointing out that horrific ruling that happened in that case as a contrast of, no, this is what politicians need to do in order to, as she says, preserve our children's rights to be able to, have kids later on. I mean, what kind of transphobe are you if you want people struggling with their identity to go forth and bury children? It's the complete opposite. So I love that she did it. And, they say Canadians are nice, but really it's just we're so afraid of being called a name. That's what this all comes down to. I think she's representing what most people believe. Even if you look at the polls with the Democrats, when they were asked about whether or not women should be in, or men should be in women's bathrooms, even they say no. So I think Canadians aren't just nice, we're just so scared, and I hope we're getting over that.
Well, we're rapidly blasting through it. I think we have another clip of Danielle Smith undoing some of the harms of the extreme left in Canada. Can we play another one of her? It's Danielle Smith Day here in Western
We just heard
Wednesday.
from
Okay,
some
here.
folks outside that feel that this legislation and the use of the notwithstanding clause is not in the best interest of kids. And we heard from young people, we heard from trans folks who were once young people and access this gender affirming care. So what would your message be to them who say that this is hurting them and hurting the future of children?
Well, kids have to go through puberty in order to be able to have kids. That's just the way it is. This is becoming sexually mature means. And we want to make sure that at the age of 16, when they're old enough to be able to make these decisions for themselves and understand the full consequences of it, they can begin that journey. But we know that when we have all kinds of laws on those who are under the age of 15, we don't allow them to smoke, we don't allow them to drive alone, we don't allow them to do drugs, we don't allow them to sign contracts, they can't get a credit card, they can't even go on a field trip to the zoo without getting their parents' permission. So if we accept that we have to be able to have a certain level of rigor over those who are minors, 15 years of age and younger, then we have to have that rigor. And if they are contemplating making permanent changes to their ability to have kids, permanent changes to their body, those decisions have to be made when they're mature enough to understand the consequences of that. So I think that we're on solid ground with the parents who are concerned about their kids. We're on solid ground with the general public. And that's the reason why we've decided to take this action.
Tamara Lich, what do you think of Danielle Smith being peak auntie in this moment? No better
love
auntie,
her.
looking out for the kids. Tell us what you thought of that.
I love her, and I love her bravery, and she's just not afraid of standing up to the man. So I think she's doing a great job.
Yeah,
and she's
Bruce
got some
Pardy.
great points. I mean, you can't go on a field trip without getting a permission slip sent home. So I mean, I fully support this.
Yes, Bruce Pardy, what say you? Giving the control back to the parents, taking it away from the radical left and giving it back to the parents. What do you think about that?
Well, yes, you wouldn't be surprised that this would enrage a certain constituency, because that essentially is part of the game plan. But no, Premier Smith is absolutely right. I mean, the whole idea is, in a free country, that you are allowed to consent to things, but children are not able to consent. And so you need to be able to draw lines, and she's drawing one. But there's an even bigger point here, which is that this is a question, if you like, of social policy. And the question that underlines Section 33 is, who is it that should be making social policy? If you're going to have a government with enough power to make social policy, who is it that should make it? And the two choices that you have are the legislature or the courts, right? And the court, traditionally, making social policy was not a job that courts were supposed to be doing.
Right.
But today, they have taken it, embraced it, and the intelligentsia in this country seems to think that only courts are qualified to make social policy, overriding the decisions of governments and legislatures. And I think that is wrong. And that is one of the key justifications for having and using Section 33 in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Drea, Humphrey, Danielle Smith, protecting the innocence of children, protecting the health of children until they're old enough to make wiser decisions. What do you think on that?
Just want to add a little bit on what Bruce just said there. Even when we see the courts make what I consider to be the scientific, consensus that, a child's frontal cortex is nowhere near being developed, therefore they can't make such decisions. In BC, we have the BC Human Rights Tribunal. You see things go through there and then it gets shut down with parental rights. In fact, I take pride in getting my facts right, and I'm not defamatory in my reports, but the only reports I've had court taken down have been related to this issue, where you try to let the public know what a parent is going through when their child is, rapidly all of a sudden identifying as the other gender after watching a movie
Sure.
in high school or something like that. Those are the reports that get taken down. Everyone who's making that happen, you can't say their names. So again, this type of stuff is long overdue. I would love to see that in BC, but I certainly won't hold my breath.
Well, we can only pray. Bruce Pardy, maybe that's a question for you. What can other governments do to behave more like Danielle Smith? Like, what advice would you give other governments to do the same, to walk some of this craziness back?
Well, get a backbone and change your ideology. I mean, I think those are the two things that are preventing other governments. They have the same powers as Alberta does. Every provincial legislature in the country is allowed to use Section 33 anytime they want.
Mm-hmm.
The number of times it's been used is actually pretty small.
Oh, Saskatchewan used it. Saskatchewan used it for parental rights in 2023. So we saw the immediate effect that it had. It put the crazy left-wing activists right on their back foot. They were in full defensive mode. But I can't encourage Danielle Smith to back this up heavier than she must now, because all of those left-wing activists find loopholes. Whatever rule you put in front of them, they're going to try and find a loophole. So the harder you can hit them, and the more things that you can overwhelm them with, the better. Okay, Danielle Smith is like shock and awing them right now, and this is the energy that we need for this country. I mean, she's just got the biggest balls in this country. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. Okay.
Yeah.